I'm Samiksha Srivastava. Let's begin this edition first up with a quick check of the headlines. Calm returns to Nepal with prohibitory orders and partial curfews continuing in some areas as negotiations gather pace for an interim leader. President and army chief to meet Gen Z leaders and their nominee for the post later today. Russia and Belarus begin a major joint military exercise on NATO's doorstep that will involve drills in both countries and in the Baltic and Barents Seas. The military exercise is happening days after drone incursion in Poland. Blow to President Donald Trump's Nobel Peace Prize obsession. The Norwegian Nobel Committee says that it will not be swayed by Trump's big push for the prize. Mauritius Prime Minister Naveen Chandra Ramgoolam offers prayers at the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. He visited the Kashi Vishwanath Temple in Varanasi earlier today. The number of people aged 100 or older in Japan has hit a record high of nearly 100,000, with almost 90% of them women. The UK introduces 100 new sanctions on Russia in a bid to reduce the Kremlin's sources of revenue and military supplies. This as the UK Foreign Secretary travels to Kiev. Japan's Nikkei share average hit a record high. The Nikkei closed at a record high of 44,768.12 after gaining as much as 1.16% in the session. For the week, the index rose by 3.8%. The broader topics added 0.35% and is set for a 1.7% weekly gain.
Today on Media Miss Minute, one U.S. lawmaker moves to hold judges accountable after the stabbing death of an innocent woman that's all over social media. And a former police officer convicted in the beating death of Tyre Nichols is getting out of prison and getting a new trial. I'm Craig DeGrelli. Welcome to Media Miss Minute, where we spotlight stories the partisan press mostly ignores. We start with a story left-leaning outlets have largely skipped. Florida Republican Congressman Randy Fine is drafting a bill that would let victims and their families sue judges who release violent repeat offenders if those offenders go on to commit another crime. The proposal follows the murder of a Ukrainian refugee stabbed to death on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina last month. Her accused killer had at least 14 prior arrests, including assault and armed robbery. Now to a story missed on the right. 3 former Memphis police officers convicted in the 2023 beating death of Tyre Nichols are getting a new trial, and one of them, Demetrius Haley, has been released on bond. A U.S. district judge ruled that comments from the original trial judge suggesting the Memphis Police Department was infiltrated with gang members showed bias and warranted a retrial.
Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem Machakudash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered about the 4 corners of the earth. Wherever you may be, wherever you may be, to you I say shalom. It's going to be brief anyways. I'm putting this video in between two particular clips here. The one I'm going to play afterwards and the one that just played before. Because obviously, I mean, ICE is not a new thing. We've all heard about ICE by now, unless you're under a rock, not paying attention. And pretty much moving, forward with oppression on those Northern Kingdom Israelites. And then you have threats towards the Southern Kingdom, which, if I'm correct, they say they're already in Chicago now. I have to recheck. I think I didn't check Chicago news. I'm not sure. I looked at some news this morning. But yeah. So I find these two clips interesting. Now, I'm not saying these are facts. I'm just explaining why I find them interesting. Okay. Because, well, aside from the Charlie Kirk thing that just happened, which people are not going to stop talking about that, you also had, which, yeah, even that, just a side note that, you had some school shootings that occurred, as I call them, Jack in the Box shooters. But aside from the Charlie Kirk situation, you also had the Carolina train situation with this Jake here. And I guess claiming that he was C-hipped. Makes me think about the movie Upgrade, okay? And the other movie I can't think of is about a female though. But both were about receiving C-hips, okay? And then the C-hip started telling them, to do this, do that, and it's all kind of craziness. So that's kind of the situation, supposedly, allegedly, with this guy and supposed alleged Ukrainian woman. So that's also it's been a big talk. I'm not sure which is bigger, that or Charlie Kirk. Probably the Charlie Kirk situation, because it's more useful to them. But as pertaining to the clip that I played before, I find that one interesting because you have, which I've talked about this short while back, because these things are fairly new. But I spoke about countries receiving immigrants, okay, and where are they coming from? Mostly America, but other places as well. And the majority of these numbers of these so-called migrants or immigrants, these are Israelites. And I just wanted to get this one scripture I was just looking for. I couldn't remember where it was. So the Wadi Habashim Shah that I found what I wanted. Okay, and it's just a quick scripture just to try to help me make my point. Revelation 11 and 10. Well, we can get 9 as well. It says, and they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half. And these are talking about living Israelites, but are spiritually dead. That's what dead goes into, not actual corpses. Dead in this scripture is going into spiritually dead, those that are disconnected from the Heavenly Father. Okay? So 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. To be put in graves meaning to finally put us to rest as in who we are, okay? Giving us our true history, which is not some African descent for you Negroes and whatever else for the rest of the tribes, all right? But no, tell us who we are, the Israelites, which we don't need them to. We know that we're the Israelites. And like it says in Hosea 1, that one day they're going to have to confess that, okay? Where it was said that you're not the people, you will be called the sons of the living power. So these dead bodies are spiritually dead Israelites who are not told who they are, okay? Which was all of us at some point. Those of us who are woken up to the truth, that's one thing. But to the rest who are still a part of the world, they still don't know who they are. And some have heard, but they deny and they reject, or there's a small few who actually accept who they are as Israelites, but they still want to carry on with the same life as they had in the world. Okay, still doing wicked, I don't know, adultery and all kinds of whatever, selling drugs and stuff like that. Okay, gangbanging. Okay, and so when you look at the clip there, now like I said, I'm not saying this is fact. I'm just saying this is what I find interesting, because I spoke about this before, how these countries are receiving Israelites. Now I want to give a perfect example of what I'm trying to get to, where you had Jacob. Okay, where he labored under his uncle for one of his daughters. He ended up getting both of them because he got Yaquab. Yaquab got Yaquab. Okay, but through his he got blessed, and he got 2 extra women, which were handmaids. So he had 4 women in total. But the point I'm making is how when Jacob was there, all right, living with Laban, he flourished because of what? Because of Jacob, okay, who was an Israelite, and the Lord was, the Spirit was dealing, okay. So he flourished because Jacob was there, and that's how a lot of these countries are, especially when you pinpoint America. America is the same way. A lot of the American economy booms off the backs of the Israelites. So as long as we're here, okay, we generate a lot of revenue for this economy. Now, man, I forget exactly what they were saying there in the little news clip there, but they talking about they'll accept the immigrants as the kind of, we'll just say, to smooth things over with Trump and America, like working out some kind of deal with them. And this is why I wanted to read this verse. In verse 10 says, "And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another." And these gifts were slaves. Okay? These gifts sent one to another were slaves. And I'm not saying Israelites are being shipped to different countries and deported to another country as slaves. That's why I gave the example of Laban. All right? They're saying that we'll accept these immigrants, okay, if you're willing to do this, this, and that, and third force. So they're still using us as a commodity, man. And so wherever the Israelites are, someone's economy booms up because a lot of money comes out of the pockets of the Israelites. And so you have this. I almost want to go back to the clip and play it, but we just played it because I want to remember exactly what they said there. But this is the point I want to bring out the scripture. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying they're being sent to other countries as slaves, but what I'm saying is they're not just accepting immigrants for no reason. And, part of that reason was stated in the video clip. Okay. And so, and you got to, and mind you, that we're still in captivity. We're not free. Okay. We're basically still bond men and bond women. Okay. So this verse kind of stood out to me. I just couldn't remember where I read it at. As to why these countries are accepting these immigrants that America doesn't want, okay? And it's all to help them. It's not because they care so much about these so-called migrants being deported. It's because they want to help their economy. And that's why that Psalms 83rd chapter sticks out so much. Because these nations are our enemies, man. They don't care for you, okay? If you serve a benefit for them, they will make use of you. If not, they don't care. All right, it's hurry up and buy, get out of my store, or you thief, you robber, okay, or whatever the case may be. Also, I believe it was also in the same clip. The other thing about the releasing, because that was the one thing about the Carolina train situation. Now, before that, it was the Tyree Nichols case, where those were was it 5? It was at least 5, might be 5 or more, but these were all Jake, right, cops, okay, that I think beat this guy to death. I believe that what it was. I didn't fully look back into it. I just try to figure out just enough to make the point that I want to make. And so talking about releasing them for something like for a retrial or something like that. And so the point I want to make with that is that notice how because Trump is really ready to make that move on the Southern Kingdom, notice how they're doing certain things that are making people pay more attention to the Southern Kingdom. Okay, so they'll say, "Oh, these were 5 cops," because if it's Edomites, they might get a case, they might get off. Even if they don't get off, it'll get swept under the rug. They'll go to another precinct, and life carries on for them. Okay, but with these J cops, all right, people are going to look at this like, no, they should be whatever, right? Because what they do is they stir up, people's emotions. Okay, they like to stir up people's emotions so they can get the reaction that they want. And so, looking at a retrial for this will stir up a lot of people, towards the Southern Kingdom. It'll even stir up a lot of Jakes because some Jakes will be like, yeah, they deserve a retrial, and some might say, nah, they did this, they did that, they don't deserve this. That puts them against each other. And then the other American people will look at that situation and say, nah, they deserve this, they deserve that. So it's a mixed emotion type of thing there, okay? But it plays off of people's emotions and have people pay attention to something like that. And then they also added on to the Carolina train situation. So, and that was also a so-called shape-looking guy, right? Okay, so they're making people focus on that Southern Kingdom, just like they did with the Northern Kingdom. Oh, immigrants, oh, migration, oh, border wall, and it stuck out for a while until they finally put ICE out there in the streets. Okay, and so now they're about to do the same thing for the Southern Kingdom because he's about to make his move. Okay, on the Southern Kingdom, using the troops. Okay, and eventually it's just going to be full force. Now, let me see. I had to go back and think because there's a clip that was the one that was after this. Let me just pop back over there real quick, see if I can find it, because it's going to play anyways. I want to remember exactly. Okay, so that's the same thing I just mentioned. So I mentioned it backwards. Okay, so this was what I was just talking about. Okay, I kind of mentioned it backwards there, but nonetheless, the points are made. This situation here, where they're accepting them, it's almost like a trade thing. Okay, we'll accept them if you do this, that, and the third thing for us. Okay, and I spoke about this once before. I just saying that they accept them as long as they don't have criminal history, criminal background, because they don't want anyone coming to their country and tearing up their country. Okay, and so if they're going to be good citizens, we can make good use of them. So this situation is coming back around. That's why I'm mentioning it again. Okay, and then you had that situation there about the train stuff and whatever, and the Tyre Nichols case. So I just wanted to make that quick point because I thought those were very interesting because the finger is already being pointed towards the Southern Kingdom. Okay, and soon, as the things ramp up with Chicago and whatever else, okay, we're going to see how things spread statewide dealing with the Southern Kingdom. But everything is on the Lord's time. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to get into. So Lord, will you edify? Shalom.
Rwanda, Eswatini, South Sudan, Uganda, and now Ghana. This is the so-called third country club. And it is only growing. Every few months, more countries join the list. This is all part of Donald Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration in the U.S. Here's what's happening. The U.S. has signed deals with several nations, mostly in the global south, to accept undocumented immigrants deported from American soil. These are called third country agreements. But this raises some big questions. Yes, illegal immigration is a global challenge, but is this really the best way to handle it? What happens to the deportees once they land in these third countries? Why are so many nations agreeing to take them in? And why is Africa becoming a dumping ground for U.S. deportations? Our next report answers these questions.
Home to about 35 million people, Ghana is the second most populous country in West Africa. And now, it will also house U.S. deportees.
We were approached by the U.S. to accept third-party nationals who were being removed from the U.S. And we agreed with them that West African nationals, were acceptable.
After a bilateral agreement with the U.S., illegal immigrant nationals from various West African countries are being sent to Ghana. 14 of them have already arrived in the country. Ghana is the latest country to join a long list of so-called third countries, which have agreed to accept people deported from the US as part of President Donald Trump's sweeping crackdown on illegal immigration. Since returning to the White House, he has clamped down on undocumented migrants and pledged to deport millions of people who are living in the US illegally. So Washington has negotiated agreements to send them to countries other than the US. Now, several countries in the global south have become third countries, including El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico, and Paraguay in Latin America. Last month, the US deported 7 people to Rwanda. In July, 5 were sent to Eswatini and 8 others to South Sudan. Recently, Uganda also reached a third country deal. And now, Ghana has joined the club. But why are these countries signing deals? They want Trump's goodwill, be it in negotiations over tariffs, cuts in US aid, or visa restrictions.
First, we were slapped with 10% tariff that was increased to 15%. And then we're included in 36 countries that were going to be placed on a visa ban. But in the meantime, all 5-year visas were cancelled, and we were restricted to single entry 3 months. It shows the tightening situation in our foreign relations.
Illegal migration is a global issue. It poses several problems, from security concerns to economic burdens. But is this the best way to deal with it? According to UN experts, such agreements have left people stranded in faraway places, at risk of torture and other inhuman treatment. People are being sent to countries with poor human rights records and places they have never lived in. Critics also say the process is often arbitrary. There are concerns about lack of transparency and due process for those deported. And some deportees are imprisoned illegally with no end in sight. And thirdly, there is added pressure on the host countries to bear the burden of deportations, while already facing economic, social, and infrastructure challenges. Which is why some countries have pushed back. Nigeria says it already has enough problems and over 230 million people to care for. Apart from this, there is a jarring pattern here. Fact that mass deportations are being made to South American and African countries, which have historically been seen as unworthy of respect or equal partnership in the eyes of the West. Ironically, mostly Western policies and interventions drove poverty, displacement, and instability in the global South. And now, the region has become a dumping ground for deportations. And not just from the US. The EU and the UK have also mulled similar controversial third country plans. So yes, illegal immigration is a growing global burden. Offloading deportees arbitrarily and without the right systems in place doesn't solve the problem, but only perpetuates it.
So Democrats are pushing back as ICE launches Operation Midway Blitz in Illinois, as the state's governor pushes back against the Trump administration's crackdown on criminal migrants again.
We are trying to protect all the residents of the state of Illinois. These are people who, people talk about, Donald Trump likes to talk about immigrants as criminals. These are not criminals. These are people who are genuinely here in this country, holding down jobs. They've been here for 10, 20, 30 years, raising families here, paying taxes, following the law, doing the right thing.
Border Czar Tom Homan joins us now. Tom, it's good to see you, brother.
Good morning.
So I want to go over a Houston operation because Texas, we don't allow sanctuary cities, but you guys were still able to detain 822 people. 112 previously were deported and re-entered into the country. You found 5 transnational gang members and 330 with deportation orders. What do you anticipate when you go to, Chicago this week?
Chicago arrests a few hundred illegal alien criminals, and Pritzker is wrong. He says that, he can't understand. These illegal aliens that he thinks are citizens and paying taxes, they cheated the system. There are millions of people standing in line, taking their tests, doing their background investigations, paying their fees to be part of the greatest nation on earth. Every one of these people broke the law. It's a crime to enter this country illegally. And we can't reward illegal behavior. So even though we're focusing the priority, President Trump has prioritized public safety threats and national security threats in a sanctuary city like Chicago, where they force us into the community to find the criminal because they won't give us access to the jail, like Cook County Jail. We're going to find the criminal in the neighborhood. We have to go to the neighborhood to find them, and we're going to find others. Others that aren't criminals, but they're illegal aliens, and they're going to go too. So if Governor Pritzker wants less, what he calls collateral arrest, then let us in the damn jail so we can arrest the criminal in the safety and security of a jail rather than release a public safety threat back into the public, which is just dumb.
Tom, all you're asking is 48 hours to come pick these criminal migrants up, and they're refusing to do so. You keep hearing the Illinois governor say that you want cooperation but they don't want to cooperate. Meanwhile, these are some of the people that you picked up, an MS-13 gang member, someone that was wanted for robbery and larceny and burglary. These are the folks that y'all picked up in Houston, a convicted child sex offender. And in the list, convicted of sexually assault against a minor. So these are the people that are in the country right now that you want the mayor, the governor to cooperate with getting them out of the country.
Exactly. I look at the numbers every morning, Lawrence, and we arrested several thousand sexual predators. Many of them sexual assault of a child as young as 2. So these are just the worst of the worst that we're focusing on. And despite what the left media says, I look at the numbers every morning. 70% of everybody we arrest is a criminal. Who are the other 30%? Many national security threats. We've arrested thousands of national security threats. Most of them don't have criminal histories because they're laying low until they do their dirty deed. We arrest a lot of gang members who don't yet have a criminal history. And plus we arrest people with final orders, people who had due process. At great taxpayer expense, a federal judge ordered them removed and they didn't leave. They became a fugitive. We're arresting them too. I can stand by every arrest ISIS made. The numbers speak the truth. We're making this country safer every day. President Trump promised the American people, we will make this country safe. Every criminal, illegal alien, and national security threat that the brave men and women of ICE take off the street makes this country safer, gives us stronger national security. One of the reasons we have the most secure border in history right now is because of great work of President Trump, the men and women of the Border Patrol, and ICE, because we're showing the whole world there are consequences for violating our laws.
It's the first time in my lifetime that we've had operational control of the border. Meanwhile, in Boston, the mayor continues to resist, the governor as well. Michelle Wu just advanced in the primary. Is this what the voters want? I mean, 70% is a high number. Of course, this is not the general election, but she has a ton of support in Boston, even though she protects these criminal migrants.
It's incredible, but I don't care who the mayor is. We're going to do our job. If mayors and governors don't want to help, then get out of the way. Because if you don't want to make your city safer, we will. Because I'm not saying that every illegal alien is a significant public safety threat, but many are. So there's a percentage of those criminals that are here illegally. We're coming for them. They're not going to stop us. They can stand aside and watch us do their job. However, they better not step over the line. They better not impede our efforts, or there's going to be consequences. Pam Bondi's been all over this for the last few weeks. So we're coming. We're going to be there tomorrow. We're going to be there next day. We're going to be there next month. We're going to be there next year. You're not stopping from what we're doing. We're making this country safer every day, and we got a lot of work to do.
So, Tom, y'all did a massive bust, and you had the South Koreans that were here illegally in the country that were detained. I know there was a flight that was supposed to deport them back. South Korea was supposed to send that flight. What's the latest on that? Why did you guys decide to do that raid?
Look, it's illegal to knowingly hire an illegal alien. It is, as you know, it's one of the major enticements of people coming to this country illegally. And when you hire an illegal alien, you undercut your competition that hires U.S. citizen employees. It drives wages down. So, you know, I've said from day one, we're going to increase worksite enforcement operations, especially in sanctuary cities, because we can't get the bad guy in the jail. We got to go to the community and find them. We can't find them there, we'll find them at the worksite. Worksite enforcement operations are going to expand immensely under this administration. So I actually have a meeting this morning on the South Korea incident, so we'll have more to come here after today.
Roger that. Tom Homan, thank you so much, sir.
All right, we're getting details on arrests by ICE during Operation Midway Blitz. 13 people have been arrested this week in Chicagoland. Authorities say they did have prior convictions or pending charges for crimes ranging from sexual assault of a child to armed robbery to domestic violence. Meantime, Governor Pritzker says that the National Guard might not be coming to Chicago after all. He says sources in the White House who have been keeping him informed on the topic have stopped calling.
I'm always glad to know he's not sending them to Chicago. We don't need them. There is not an emergency in Chicago that requires military troops on the ground. And so I hope he does not send them into any other American cities, because I do not think, if there is not an emergency or an insurrection, that anyone in this country deserves to have their city invaded by military troops led by the President of the United States.
Governor Pritzker further condemned the president's National Guard plan, saying if the president was actually concerned about lowering crime in Chicago, Pritzker says he would bring in more FBI or ATF agents.
The number of suspected Ebola cases in Congo's southern Kasai province have more than doubled in a week since a new outbreak was confirmed there, according to Africa's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. The suspected cases have increased from 28 to 68 in recent days. It has also spread from 2 to 4 districts, while the death toll currently stands at 16. Local residents expressed concerns on Thursday over the outbreak, the first in Congo in 3 years, and the province first in more than a decade. The fighting in eastern Congo has also complicated efforts to contain the disease, which can spread rapidly due to the proximity and density of the villages and provinces. The outbreak was announced a week ago after a pregnant woman was confirmed to have been infected in the locality of Bulape.
Veníamos sobre el pavimento y vimos una fuga de gas.
We were walking along the sidewalk when we saw a gas leak. My mom told me to move out of the way, and I reacted quickly. That's when we saw the explosion. There was a boom, and several people were injured, and backpacks were burned. I ran quickly to my house.
Una jornada en todo el país el día de hoy, y la estamos cumpliendo frente a un gobierno indolente, a un gobierno prepotente, autoritario, que no ha resuelto los principales problemas del país.
India's weather department says the southwest monsoon may gradually begin its retreat from northwestern regions of the country by September 17th. Nearly 8% extra rainfall was recorded this monsoon season. And on that note, here's a quick check of weather updates from across India. Now, beginning with northeastern state of Sikkim, at least 4 people died and 3 others are missing after a landslide struck the Yangthang constituency in West Sikkim late on Thursday night. A video shared by Sikkim police shows officials holding on to a rope while standing in turbulent floodwaters. The police, in coordination with local villagers and SSB personnel, managed to evacuate 2 injured women after constructing a temporary log bridge over the flooded river. The state of Punjab in India has been reeling from its worst floods in decades. 2 more deaths have been reported from Fazilka and Mansar districts. The death toll has now risen to 55 in the state. Relief and rescue operations are still underway in several districts. Concerns are mounting over possible outbreak of diseases. Now, this weather department has warned of heavy rainfall on September 12th, 13th and 14th. Flood worries in the state may rise again as additional water from the Bhakra Dam is set to be released. 5,000 cusecs of extra water will be released as a precautionary measure to ensure space for the expected inflow due to the upcoming rains.
The hilly state of Himachal Pradesh is also one of the worst affected states this monsoon season. Thunderstorms are expected in Una, Bilaspur and Kangra districts of Himachal today till September 14th. A total of 380 fatalities have been reported in the state since the onset of monsoon season. Now, of the 380 fatalities, 215 deaths have been attributed to rain-related incidents and 165 from road accidents. Cumulative public property losses are estimated at over 4.3 crore rupees.
Israel struck inside Qatar this week, targeting Hamas leaders, a move that is causing friction with Washington. According to the Wall Street Journal, President Trump was blindsided by the strike, learning of it from military reports rather than from Israel. He called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to say the move wasn't wise, noting it hit the territory of a U.S. ally working to mediate a Gaza ceasefire. Hamas leaders survived the attack, but 6 junior members were killed. Hamas broke off negotiations, and Qatar's prime minister called the strike a betrayal, warning on CNN that the entire Gulf region is now at risk. Axios reports Trump pressed Netanyahu twice on Tuesday not to repeat the strike on Qatar. Still, President Trump tried to frame the incident as an opportunity for peace, even as aides vented frustration at Israel's unilateral moves. Netanyahu has been unapologetic. In a video message, he told Qatar and others, quote, "You either expel terrorists or we will." And he compared the strike to U.S. actions against al-Qaeda after 9/11. The clash underscores Trump's balancing act, backing Israel's fight against Hamas while cultivating Gulf partners like Qatar, which recently gifted the United States a $400 million jet to serve as Air Force One. Despite the tension, Netanyahu appeared alongside U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee at a ceremony in Israel this week, naming a beachfront walkway after Donald Trump and calling him the best friend Israel has ever had in the White House.
France and Germany have begun bolstering air defenses for Poland after Warsaw claimed that 19 Russian drones entered its airspace, which the latter denies. Well, in a social media post, French President Emmanuel Macron has said that its country will deploy 3 Rafale fighter jets to help Poland protect its airspace. Furthermore, he said that the security of the European continent remains a top priority and that Europe will not yield to Russia's growing intimidation. Germany said it would double its Eurofighter deployment from 2 to 4 jets and extend the mission through the end of the year, while Poland confirmed receiving a new batch of 38 Abrams M1A2 tanks that were manufactured in the United States. The Polish president has labelled the incursion a test not just of Poland's defences but also of NATO's commitment. He added that Warsaw has been engaged in a hybrid war with Moscow for over 4 years now, and the latest episode proves the need to ramp up air and missile defence systems. Prime Minister Donald Tusk triggered NATO's Article 4 and called for urgent consultations among allies, while warning NATO allies against pretending that nothing has happened. He added that Poland will continue to cooperate with Kiev on anti-drone systems. Tightening its security, Poland has now closed its airspace along the eastern border with Belarus and Ukraine up to an altitude of 3 kilometers and suspending all civilian drone activity until December. The closure comes as Belarus and Russia start Zapad 2025 joint military exercise, which Polish officials claim are designed to simulate an invasion of Suwalki Gap, a strategically critical NATO corridor. US President Donald Trump called the drone incursion possibly a mistake, an explanation that the Polish leaders aren't buying.
Russian drone incursion into Poland.
Could have been a mistake.
Could have been a mistake, but regardless, I'm not happy about anything having to do with that whole situation. But hopefully it's going to come to an end.
قبلا ما اعلام کردیم اگر گزارش رو هم سازمان انرژی اتمی باید تهیه بکنه، آنچه که از مواد ما هست همه زیر به اصطلاح آوارهای مربوط به تأسیسات بمباران شده هست. اینکه این به اصطلاح مواد قابل دسترسی هست یا نیست یا بعضیش چگونه هست، این رو سازمان در حال ارزیابی هست و ما این ارزیابی خودمون رو وقتی نهایی شد به شورای عالی امنیت ملی، یعنی سازمان انرژی اتمی به شورای عالی امنیت ملی